Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is Tony good morning. I think you all have your coffee like I do. I know some of you are used to watching us at all in morning coffee right now, though. So we're going to take over for today's episode. It's going to come up a little bit later. So we just wanted to come live. It's been a little while since we've done a legislators roundtable with all of you, and there's been a lot happening behind the scenes. I know that many of you have heard some of the exciting breaking news with MIOSHA. I know many of you are aware of what Steve Johnson, the chair of the Oversight Committee in the House, has been doing. And so we asked Steve and we asked Representative Luke Meerman, who's also spearheaded the MIOSHA, the breaking news with MIOSHA. We've asked them to join us today. And then because this is also MIOSHA related, some of the conversation we're going to have today, I've asked my partner in crime, according to the governor, Kristin Megan, to join us. And you all know Kristin Megan. So Ron, why don't you say hello, and then we'll let our guests all say hello, and then we'll get into the topics.
Good morning, everybody. I think this is a fantastic day. As I wrote in the chat, I think it's a great morning in America. What we're finding, the longer that we get into and the farther we get from the grips of this so-called pandemic, the more we recognize that we were the bunch of this has been a hoax. The timing and science and data has never been provided to us. I know that you've all been frustrated and angry, and we wanted to bring on a couple of the representatives who have been working diligently, as I'm sure that you've seen on camera with these House Oversight Committee, and bring on Steve Johnson and Luke Meerman. Steve and Luke, why don't you say hello first?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me this morning. We've had some good wins the last couple of weeks here where MIOSHA has finally agreed not to pursue permanent rules. I think we're going to stop them regardless, but we're glad that they relented. It's because of public pressure. It's not because they all of a sudden thought it was the right thing to do. No, it's purely because of the pressure that people like yourselves applied to them. And so that's a huge win going forward. We've seen the governor's polling numbers continue to plummet, and that's good. It means we are exposing her for who she truly is. So thanks for having me this morning.
Absolutely. Well said, Steve. I also appreciate being with you all here, and thank you all for your undivided efforts that you've given towards our nation here, towards our state of Michigan. I was just thinking this morning about what Pearl Harbor did for our nation and how that many people saw it woke a sleeping giant. And I'm hoping that that's the case for us here, and that we look back on 2020 as our year of reclaiming freedom and liberty.
And Kristin, we've been all beating this drum about MIOSHA and OSHA. This is your area. Say hello and tell us what this means to you.
Well, good morning. So first of all, I'm just so glad to see everyone's faces this morning to have good news for once. So as many people know, I've been in this field for just over 18 years as a senior industrial hygienist. I'm an Air Force veteran. I've done pandemic preparedness planning and response for 12 of those 18 years. And I've just been really ashamed at the people in Fed OSHA, our state OSHA, not just our state, but overall, knowing that we have set standards that we've been following for decades. And while science is ever changing, the one thing about our profession, and Tammy and I have similar professions, is that we know we always verify the confidence and control. So we're always reevaluating studies. And it's just very sad that within my profession, I never thought I'd see a day where people would politicize controlling health hazards in an incorrect way. So I'm really glad that this MIOSHA proposed rule was kind of dead on arrival, because I think the biggest portion of that I had a major issue with was when they attempted to say they had jurisdiction over customers. And I don't know if everyone else fully understands this, but OSHA, state OSHA, Fed OSHA has no jurisdiction over customers unless you're a patient in a healthcare system and you're confirmed to be infectious with a communicable disease. Just like ADA protection, you cannot assume someone is ill. So I couldn't believe the trampling on our individual liberties and our health freedom that I've seen over the past year and a half. So I'm glad there's light at the end of this tunnel. This means so much to me. I think I can start sleeping now. So thank you for having me on this morning.
Oh, don't go to sleep yet. I'm still hoping that we can testify in front of the House and the Senate committees. I'm working on that, Kristin. We've testified all over the country with other legislative bodies, so we have to testify in front of our own, right? So don't go to sleep yet. No, we cannot rest just yet. our work is not done. But the reason that I wanted to bring Kristin on is because so many of our followers have been watching our videos that have now gone viral, obviously. Well, last summer, they went viral. And we've been helping to free individual states from the grip of the mask terror, just with our testimony, bringing the real science and the data forward that has existed for many, many years, for decades. So Kristin and I have been blowing the whistle on this craziness all along. And we're going to get into exactly how Steve and Luke, you guys are finally controlling her and reining her in. But the biggest thing for us with all of this is that these proposed mandates are so illegal. For one thing, MIOSHA absolutely cannot create standards that go above and beyond where there is no federal standard. They were trying to do what Oregon OSHA did. And I don't know if people realize outside of our career fields that what Oregon OSHA just did by creating these permanent OSHA standards and mandates, they violated the Act of Congress, the Occupational Safety and Health Act of Congress of 1970, because there is no federal standard. So that means an individual state cannot legally create standards that further and go above and beyond something that exists in the federal world. So Kristin and I have been like, whoa, what is going on here? But at the same time, a lot of our colleagues are saying, oh, don't worry, they can't do that. That's not legal. Well, Kristin and I have been living in Michigan underneath this governor's reign of terror. And we were saying, it doesn't matter if she can do this or not, if it's legal or not. 90% of what she's doing is not legal, but she's doing it anyway. And so that's why we still got the people involved to send those letters through the public commentary period to that public commentary department, because we knew we had to get people activated to not allow this to pass public comment, because just because Governor Whitmer is told you can't do this, it's not legal, does not mean she's not going to do it. This woman is an attorney, but she has zero regard for the rule of law. And so what we were watching was absolutely terrifying, knowing that if you guys didn't step in and control her, the only way really at this point you can control her, which is through the purse strings, we knew we'd be looking at permanent COVID mandates. So why don't we get into a little bit about what you guys have actually been able to do? And Steve, I'd like to start with you because you're the chair of the Oversight Committee, and you have been tasked with, I know it's been exciting for us to watch and follow you, but you've been tasked with really holding this governor's feet to the fire. And we've been watching. It seems like every week there's something new that you're working on. And so you've been really, really busy, and we appreciate what you've been busy doing. So if you could get into that and just let the people know, because not everybody is aware of what's going on behind the scenes with the new Speaker of the House, Jason Wentworth, how he has really gotten behind you and supported you in this effort. And it's really ultimately what has finally reined her in. And it's the way that you guys have been able to control her. And this is a woman, of course, who knows nothing other than control. So it's kind of like we're fighting fire with fire, and we have to. We have no other choice. So why don't you get into that and just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing and then how you've been able to rein her in at this point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been a huge change from this term to last term, and it's because of leadership. Last term's leadership, I think, truly felt that Governor Whitmer would deal in good faith with them, and that was never the case. And this term's leadership with Speaker Wentworth has been far and away different. In my mind, it's been way better, trying to actually hold this governor accountable for her actions. And that really falls squarely on the Oversight Committee to begin those. And so we've done a number of hearings, whether it was regarding Robert Gordon mysteriously leaving his job and getting a $155,000 payment to maintain his secrecy. And then moving forward, now we have this plane trip to Florida that we were told not to go to Florida, but she can go there and she doesn't even have to pay for it. She gets a private jet. I mean, there's just one scandal after another here. So this week, we actually have the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson. She's going to be before us discussing her recent moves to keep the SOS offices at appointment only. So you can't just do a walk-in. That's incredibly problematic. There's a lot of people that are trying to get their licenses renewed or new plates when they sell a car, and they're seeing that the first appointment's 3, 4, 5 months away from now. So we have her before us this week, and we'll try to highlight the issues caused by that as well. This governor looks at political polling. That has been her MO from the beginning. And if she thinks something's going to poll well for her, she's going to do it. And once she realizes it's not the case, she won't. And that's what's happened these last few months, is as her polling has absolutely cratered, she realizes she needs to get away from COVID. She wants to get back to her fix the roads campaign slogan. She wants that to be what's people are thinking about the next election. So that is why she has done this complete 180. Really, it's just a couple weeks ago, she had her back to normal plan where if you reach certain vaccine levels, then things would open up. And it became evident that wasn't going to happen. So she pivoted, within 24 hours of some new CDC guidelines, she changed. And then the week after, she all of a sudden changed things even again. I mean, there is no science here. There is no data that she's following. She is purely looking at the polling out there and just adjusting based off of that. And by having a concerted effort within the House and the Senate of holding her accountable, exposing this hypocrisy, I think that we've had some impact on lowering those polling numbers. I think we just saw over the weekend, a Breitbart article came out showing that she was at a bar with some friends violating her own MIOSHA rules. They put some tables together, which is violating her own rules. So that's another thing that we're going to hit her on this week. I think it's House Bill 4501 we are voting on, and that says if you got a fine for MIOSHA as your first offense due to COVID, we're going to waive that fine. If the governor can't follow her own rules, why should these business owners be penalized for it? It also says if you got fined under a 1945 or an order due to the 1945 law, you got to get your money back. That was an unconstitutional order. That you shouldn't have to go to court and sue for that. The state should automatically have to reimburse you. So we're starting to go on the offense here, try to push back and help these business owners that had just been truly demoralized by this governor's actions the last year.
Well, and
Fantastic.
we really appreciate that. I have been waiting for you guys to go on the offense. And I know that you guys last year, Steve, I know you were in a completely different position than you're in now. And we've been watching you. It's almost like the handcuffs have been taken off and you've been given the green light to go get her. And we've so appreciated what you're doing. So going on the offense, I'll be very honest. Let's just be blunt here because we all know the truth. The only thing the Democrats respond to is force. The only thing they respond to is control because that's how they work. She is not at all interested in working with you guys. I think you guys know that, but I think our viewers out there watching this need to understand. She is not interested in working with you. I think she set foot on the Senate floor one time. It's her way or the highway. That has been how she's operated all along. We have to understand the only reason that she's making these concessions is because she's being forced to. You guys are leaving her no choice, but that is how they operate. That is how she operates. So we can't now start saying, oh, she's playing nice and start playing politics, trying to reach all across all aisles. And Ron's going to speak on that here in just a minute. But I do want to hear from Luke while we're talking about MIOSHA. I want to stay focused on this MIOSHA topic here a minute because this is so big in my world and in Kristin's world. And I want to hear from Luke because Luke, you really helped to spearhead this MIOSHA. And I remember last summer, Luke and I were talking about this when I was in Chicago a few days ago. I remember last summer, I pulled my car over to the side of the road and it was summertime. I think it was the first time that I had spoken with Luke on the phone. And I said, because I was just leaving a project where I had done a MIOSHA inspection. I was very new with Stand Up Michigan. And I was like, we can end this really fast if everybody just stops complying. And if the legislature will go after her where they hold the power, the purse strings, right? And Luke said, but we had no idea this was going to go on for an entire year. I mean, nobody could have anticipated this last year, right? So Luke, why don't you talk about your efforts to spearhead this with MIOSHA in particular and how you really did pick up that ball and run with it even after our conversations and through this past year? Just remember to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yeah, to me, it was just really for me a blessing to be in the right place at the right time. The idea that this governor, through her department, would think that having this authority in with no end to it, I do think it's another one of the things that just really pushed people over the edge in Michigan is pushing back against her and frankly blowing up in her face. And I thought almost immediately when I saw these proposed rules out there, I thought this is a gift to us. She has overstepped here, and we can gather the people's voices and use this for momentum against her. I think she just completely misread things. And yes, it was her desire to have this authority. You know, they said very clearly, they said, you know, hey, our second 6-month time period runs out October 14, and we're going to need something after that to continue to combat this virus and to have that control. But the people are turning against her, and we're using that. And I'm just so grateful for all that, grateful to be in this position. We put together that House website, GOP website, where you could come through and enter comments, 5,000 comments. Yeah, she backpedaled pretty quickly, frankly, quicker than I thought she was going to. I thought this would peter out over the next month, maybe 2 months, 3 months. But for her to reverse course so quickly, to Steve's point, I think she just sees the people leaving her in droves. And to your point also, Tammy, that stop complying. I do think now that she's really lost the people's support. And this is one of the things that she misstepped on, overstepped on, and showed people her true hand, her true desire to have this kind of authority going forward, that this MIOSHA could come in at any time in the future outside the bounds of the legislature, because to me, that's one of the 3 greatest threats to our democracy, is an unchecked bureaucratic state. And when a bureaucracy can make a law, implement it, and then run with it, what do we have left? So the people spoke up, and I think the people are the big reason that she's pulling back now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kristin, before we move on from this MIOSHA topic, why don't you tell everybody what you and I have been very busy doing and what you did, what you submitted. We've been directing people very specifically about what this public commentary period is. How does MIOSHA create a new rule? First of all, we knew they could not create a rule that the feds don't have, so that was illegal. But we also wanted to kill this in the public commentary period because we know how regulations work and how the regulatory environment works. We deal with these agencies, MIOSHA, DOT, EPA, all the time in our work. So why don't you talk a little bit about what we directed the people to do, what you did, what I did, specifically your 36-page letter, and how they showed up and they did it and killed this at this point.
Yeah, so I don't want, just to recite my background, I've never worked for OSHA, but I was the Department of Defense liaison for a lot of OSHA programs, like the one person in the Air Force that was the liaison. So I have a lot of experience with federal OSHA, going to OSHA classes. I know how they work. So I went ahead and behind the scenes, Tammy and I nonstop have gone behind the scenes. We've recruited every single occupational safety and health professional, environmental health and safety professional, construction safety worker, industrial hygienist, engineers that are in our field. We reached out to them tirelessly around the clock and said, are you willing to speak out? Because so many of them were unable to speak out publicly, saying what we all know is that masks do not work in either direction to stop an aerosolized virus. But if you are submitting public comment, there can be no reprisal because that's expected of you. And it actually is like a nice little mark on your resume that you include public comment for a proposed standard. So I think just over 112 people within our profession who submitted written public comment and submitted it directly to MIOSHA. And what's funny is a lot of these people who are part of this fight either are former OSHA employees or actually outrank the current members within OSHA. See, no offense to OSHA employees, but it's not an accolade to say, oh, I work for OSHA. In the public sector, we have more rights, we make more money. So it is not a demotion for people who say, oh, Tammy, you guys don't work for OSHA. Well, you're darn right we don't. But one thing I want to point out is where I get things done, folks. I'm known as the loudmouth liberty enforcer. And I ran across the former OSHA deputy assistant secretary that left in 2017, but still has his hand in government. He told me that the reason that we are masking is because we are viewing it as universal precautions. So if you don't understand what universal precautions are, that's in healthcare terminology where you view everyone as having the infection or the proposed hazard. So when I'm walking into Lowe's, no Lowe's employee can view me as an immediate direct threat with a communicable disease. So every single angle that FedOSHA and MIOSHA has attempted to say, I went into their own standards and I found where they're violating their own standards and I cited it as if I was the inspector and I was writing them up. And it's 36 pages long. See, the problem here is, and I want to make sure that everyone that's part of our state government understands this. I know that our professions are behind the scenes, but we can never let this happen again. If we are going to be proactive and prepare for another pandemic, I mean, we're talking about an infection fatality rate of less than 0.03%. But either way, if industrial hygienists and occupational safety and health professionals are the ones in hospitals that run the programs for risk reduction, infection control, respiratory protection program, hazardous communication programs, how industrial hygienists and occupational safety and health professionals were not part of our state COVID-19 task force is all you needed to know. Because when Governor Whitmer got on TV and continued to say that she is following the science, well, we found the science. And that science is I don't want to use that terminology, a half-but observation study. Because we do not use observation studies as a part of scientific review. And it is absolutely asinine that she still has not revealed the science she's following. And I know why, because it doesn't exist. And I straight up asked the head of OSHA, state and federal, to provide me with proof of a real-world RCT, a randomized controlled trial, that showed that these facial devices can work to stop a virus. And the biggest thing that we have to remember is when you realize not only do these devices not work to stop the virus, they're furthering the issue through cross-contamination, self-contamination. And if I did this as an industrial hygienist, I used to be embedded in a VA hospitals, the last hospital I worked in. If I told an admin person or janitor they had to wear a mask to stop the spread of infectious disease, I possibly could be in jail. Do you want to know why? Because I'd be violating 6 OSHA standards and I'd be putting them at greater risk because nobody was trained on these issues. We put people in harm's way. We continue to be a hot zone. Why? We were one of the states with the strongest restrictions, and I'm not blaming you. I understand where you were strong-armed. But people need to know this isn't just about the trampling on our rights. She caused greater harm. She violated her oath. And if this woman is not in an orange jumpsuit within the next 5 years, we have not done our job.
Well,
yeah, I love that because that's so true. Her actions have been nothing less than criminal, and she's breaking OSHA law, federal law. But Ron, do you think that maybe at this point we could deviate into? So we know what we've done. We've stopped her with MIOSHA, but the people are asking us what's next. Nobody really believes this is a win, and I keep telling them, no, really, this is a win. This is stopped. But we also have, if you look at all the comments, I don't know if Steve and Luke, you guys are able to see the comments scrolling here, but if you look at the comments, it's, well, what about the health department? Because all she did was thumbed her nose at the state Supreme Court, right? When they told her to knock it off and go back and work with the legislature. All she did was, she's fully in contempt of court of them. She just pivoted. She continued to do exactly the same thing, only weaponizing MIOSHA and the health department. Okay, so we've stopped MIOSHA. We've stopped her from doing that. And I know that part of this negotiation that was reached, right, with Senator Shirkey and Speaker of the House Wentworth, it had to do with releasing budgetary funds but at the same time, only if she would stop with these permanent COVID mandates, right? So where does that leave us then? I think maybe we should pivot then into the health department, schools. What is this about June 1st and July 1st? Can you guys speak to some of that? Because that's where a lot of these comments are coming from.
Yeah, I think I guess I'll be clear. At the end of the day, it's we the people. And if we the people aren't ready and woke up, and I realize that many people who are on this show right now have been there all along, and I think feel like their voice has been crying and lost in the wind, and maybe their legislators haven't been listening either or working hard enough. But I do feel like the difference that's shifting under the governor right now is her polling numbers. and that's we the people. That's enough of we the people. What are we going to do specifically for the next time? And that is have the governor, she's agreed to sign legislation that restricts her powers. Now, I know that feels like, oh, she's never going to do that, but we still have the budget that we're working with, and that was part of the agreement for this overall agreement with Shirky and Mike, that she would sign some restrictions to her powers. I do have some skepticism myself about what that's going to look like, but I do believe that it's going to happen. I don't know to what extent. It needs to be some restrictions to MIOSHA. Senate Bill 1 was very clear after 28 days that the legislature needs to be involved in whatever Health and Human Services is doing, DHHS, in combating the next pandemic. So I think that's going to happen. Is it going to be just like what we wanted, like I would like to see for restricting her powers? I hope so. We'll see. But I will say at the end of the day, if we the people aren't standing up in the next pandemic, I do think there would be a way that, a governor would find a way around it. So I don't want to be a downer on all that, but I do think that, again, waking a sleeping giant, we the people, freedom and liberty, what is important to us, that's what will keep a rogue government in check.
Perfect. Steve, what do you have to add to that?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note that this was all this whole June 1st. There's some lifting of mandates, and July 1st, really, they're all supposed to be lifted. My initial concern was, all right, what did we give up to get that negotiation? I mean, that makes me a little worried. I don't always trust our negotiating skills. We did not negotiate anything on the budget. We didn't say, all right, we're going to put this in the budget for you. We won't put this in the budget. The only thing we negotiated was we will now let her budget director sit in on the meetings. That to me is a very minor thing to give up, is to let one of her people sit in. There is no agreement made that they are allowed input on it, that we're going to spend things a certain way. We just said, you can now be in the room. Now, as far as the limitations on her power, I think there was no specific agreement made on that, other than there would be something there. And so my guess is that's going to be the next battle, is her budget director is now going to want a say in the budget and not just be in the meetings. And at that point, that's when the discussion over probably Senate Bill 1 begins of, all right, if you want to have input on this budget, now you have to come to the table and say, what bill are you going to sign that actually limits your power going forward? So I think we're at a good point here. I mean, she has continually updated her own plan because it wasn't moving fast enough for her because of her polling numbers. It is not time for us to let up. This is actually the time for us to double down on this and to make sure that we finish the game strong here. To me, I feel like we're kind of in the fourth quarter here. We've got a chance to really get a big win. We can't let up. We can't do a prevent defense. We've got to go on offense and make sure, not just for the COVID pandemic, but to make sure that this never happens again. And that's where we just have to continue to hold her feet to the fire. We have to make sure that people don't forget what this governor did to everyone. I think that's one of my biggest concerns, is come July 1st, is everyone just forget how bad she mismanaged this whole thing. No, we have to make sure that we double down on that, make sure they don't forget. There's also been a recent report regarding the nursing home deaths that it looks like they were not properly counting those either. They don't have very good data on that as well. So we're going to be looking into that. I mean, there's so many different facets to how she mismanaged this crisis, and we can't let that go. We have to continue to expose her actions going forward.
Well, let's face it. Her goal right now is reelection. She has pivoted right now because of the polling numbers, but she hasn't changed the end game, and neither have the people that work with her, neither have the unions that back her, or the lobbyists that support and control everything and all the decisions that she's made through the process. We also know that what's happening right now, both in our state and around the country, is those that opened up fully earlier on are doing better than we are, have done better than we have. And this needs to continue to be exposed for those people that do not get the information from the general media. You can't trust newspapers. You can't trust what's online, and you certainly can't trust our own reporters or media. They have silenced most of our voices in regards to what is right, what is legal, and have backed this governor at every turn. So the governor wants to pivot, as we've all seen, but right now she's looking, I think, for more of a diversionary tactic. She does not want to talk about the Florida trip any longer. It is a disaster for her. She doesn't want to talk about going to an inauguration with 2,000 people, but you couldn't hold a graduation. She doesn't want those comparatives to be shared with her. She wants to move on because she's got the money. See, the federal money, once we release it, understand, all of you out there, she is going to funnel this money to her progressive organizations. She's going to utilize them in order to get stuff. The education system has been flush with money. They haven't been operating. They're not in open in-person learning. School year is about over. I don't even know what those test scores would look like, but the fact is, it is a disaster what's happened in our education. And now we're facing issues like mandatory vaccinations for kids going back to college. These are things that follow specifically with where we are with this. Why have we backed off the MIOSHA? Why are we not backing off of those issues? We've got to pass bills. I know you are all working on those too. I'd like to get your opinion on those. But the non-requires vaccinations, we have to defund universities, and we have to defund public school systems if indeed they begin forcing or mandating things that are illegal, like any kind of microchipping, any kind of proof of vaccinations. And we already have proof right now, both of you, that high schools and school systems are actually pointing out the children who are not vaccinated in the school classroom. It is disgusting what is happening. This is not going to stop when we get to fall. They are now going to blame those that aren't vaccinated for the reason we still have to wear masks. If you would all just follow, if you would all just obey, then we will get rid of these masks. But it's your fault. It's the Republicans' fault. It's your conservative legislators' fault. That will be on you. I can promise you, and the media will be complicit in all of that, which means when we talk about not letting up, we mean we need to hammer it down literally right now in a way that they understand the destruction that she's caused, the illegal mandates, and to have teachers having children hold their hands up if they've been vaccinated and pointing out the children who haven't. It is happening all across the state in this country, and we have got to say we have had it with these leaders in the education. And speaking of that, I want to make sure that we touch on a couple of other issues while we're here. The nursing home, I know you're going to continue on that. The flight situation, we're going to continue there. But we also have this public school thing. The one thing that has overplayed their hand in all of this has been in the public school system. And there are two areas, again, I want to touch on because they're the top thing as we've traveled the state and opened with these state meetings. One, of course, is election integrity. That would be HR 1S1. We have to pass legislation that is going to stop that and continue to keep the autonomy of our state legislature in regards to elections. As we all know, those things are in the markup. They are looking for carving out things in the filibuster. We don't care if she vetoes these. We need to put her on record, because the one way you're going to get voters out and the grassroots activated is to know that you are fighting for election integrity. That means everything from the Dominion voting systems, which should be scrapped completely. It doesn't matter. It's optics. We have the money. The money came to us from the federal government. What is $25 million for different machines that cannot be connected to the internet that can protect us from certain things? A lot of these other bills that you're looking to pass will protect us in certain ways. I know I'm covering a lot, but I want to let you answer on all the above. The other issue is this critical race theory. I'm telling you, the one way we win elections next year is to expose what's happening with our children. We have masked our children, and what has happened by masking our children is we have taken the authority away from our parents and our grandparents. Think about it. The children come home crying they don't want to wear a mask, and our parents have to say to them, I'm sorry, but the government says you have to. We have to wait till the government okays you not wearing these masks. The parents have to protect their children. It is time that we stand up and say never again, or our children will not go back to school. And it is time for you to say we will not fund public education if the children are not in classrooms. If those two things happen, I promise you they will backpedal on that so quickly as the pink slips hit them. But as you know, we've made flush these public education systems for the next 5 and 6 years. They are getting billions and billions of dollars to prop up education and to pass along things like critical race theory. I just want to throw out to you guys so that you understand, and I want to talk about this as we go forward at other conversations. Critical race theory is never even mentioned in this curriculum stuff that's coming. But what's mentioned is it's called action civics. There are major things coming from the administration, passed along through grants to public school systems. They're calling it social emotional learning, diversity, equity, and inclusion, cultural responsive teaching. These are terminologies that are being used to teach critical race theory, to destroy the history of our country, 1619 Project, climate change, and is going to be taught in every single category and teaching area in our school systems throughout the country if we don't stop it. States, North Carolina just passed information. Texas just passed legislation that bans the teaching, and what they do is they use the power of the purse. They are defunding education. They are fining public schools and higher education for teaching this curriculum, and anywhere that there is state or federal funding that is given to universities or schools in their states. That is how difficult and tough we have got to be. I know this is for another topic, but I want to make sure that we stay focused on and keep our ball on all of the areas that they are looking to take over our society and destroy our country. It is real. It is very real. And the budget is the answer, because like you said, once you cut the budget out, she came to the table, and her poll numbers, of course, crashing along with that. She had no other option. So I'd like to get your opinion on those topics, and I'd like to get your buy-in on all of the above. So let's go to you, Steve. What have you heard about this, or where would you like to learn more? Because these are areas we have to discuss.
Yeah, no, there's a lot there to cover. So first, I just say get your kids out of public school. I think that's the first thing. Get them out of there. It's an indoctrination center. They're not there to educate. They're actually, their primary focus now is social services, whether it's healthcare, counseling, a number of things. They're not even educating anymore. So get your kids out of public education. Second thing is run for school board. I can't emphasize that enough. Even if you don't have kids in the school, it doesn't matter. You're paying taxes to that school. Get on the school board. What they do with these proposals or these millages to raise your taxes for whatever special projects they're trying to do, they put it on the ballot in May. No one is paying attention except the teachers that go and vote themselves. Basically, they're just getting more money for their job. It's the school board that puts those millages on the ballot. And so if our people will run for those positions, get on there, you can stop those millages from ever even getting to the election. You stop it before it gets started. So get your kids out of public education, run for school board. And then when you're on the school board, not only can you save the taxpayers money, but now you have a say in the curriculum. This critical race theory stuff is absolutely absurd. It is racism, what they're teaching. They are teaching that because of the color of your skin, you are inherently racist. That is what it is. If you're a white person, you are racist and you have to apologize for your actions, even though you may have not done anything wrong. Look, I'm someone who makes a lot of mistakes in my life. I need to apologize for those. But you never apologize for something you did not do. You are not guilty of someone else's sins. You're guilty of your own sins. And critical race theory is a completely different mindset where you are now guilty based purely off of your skin color. There is legislation in the Senate. I think it's a lot of Tice that has a bill to ban that. We have to move that. I think if Trump showed us anything, these are the types of issues where the media will try to paint us as racist somehow for this, because we believe that you shouldn't teach that a whole race is racist purely because of the color of skin. The media and everyone, all the elites will try to say that we're racist because we oppose this. But Trump showed us that the vast majority of people actually agree with us on this. They're sick of this. They're sick of being told that they're racist, sexist, misogynist because they have a different viewpoint on issues. So this is something we absolutely need to go after. As far as election integrity, I know there's some legislation that's moving. We have to do voter ID, make sure we strengthen the voter ID requirements. These ballot drop-off boxes for absentee ballots is absolutely absurd. If you are voting absentee, you already have it easier than everyone else, right? You don't have to go on election day and stand in line and vote. Why do we have to now make it even easier for you to vote? The only requirement is you either mail it in or you go to your clerk's office and drop it off. But instead, they want to have these boxes that are around the city that really aren't that secure and that anyone can drop off. Well, you're voting absentee. You have time. We don't need to bend over backwards trying to make your life easier. It's already easy enough. We have to get rid of these absentee ballot drop-off boxes. There's a number of things that we have to do. The governor's going to veto this legislation. Go for it. That's fine. I think we could do a petition drive similar to what you guys did, repealing the 1945 law. I think we get the signatures even faster on this one. So I'm sure I missed a couple of things you said there, but that's just my initial thoughts.
Off to you, Luke.
Yep.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, I think we'll need to get those signatures also. And I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to galvanize us as a voting public, as Michigan, to say this is what we want. When you look at all that happened in Georgia and Texas too, but especially Georgia, and the corporations that were pushing back on what was happening for voter integrity, the people still support it at the grassroots level by 70 and 80%. So all of the noise that the media made and the corporations that, pretended to be so woke, the same Coca-Cola corporation that had just a week or two before their shareholders meeting, and they said anybody coming in this meeting that's going to vote on what Coca-Cola is doing has to show ID. You have to show ID to buy beer. We're not asking for too much. This is not a overreach or a suppression of anybody. We're looking for integrity. We want everybody to vote who can vote. Everybody who that can vote. That's what we're after. Yes, you're right. On the education piece, right now the higher education budget says universities, you don't get your money if you're requiring a passport. And we need to continue to hold on that. We need to move that down towards the local school, public school level too. There was extra money that went towards schools, started back in January, and they had to open in order to get it. Now, it wasn't 100% opening. We need to continue to use the money for that. And that money did get out there, and schools did open themselves up if they wanted that money. So in that sense, a lot of kids got more in-person teaching than ever before. And that was because it was held to that. We have Representative John DeMoose has got a resolution against H.R. 1. Again, a complete overreach of the federal government and just wiping aside all of the states and the states' rights and the idea of our founding fathers that states run their own elections. And then on the critical race theory in the House, it's Representative Beeler that also dropped the bill, and Representative Johnson talked about Senator Tice. So in both cases, good bills, and we need to move forward with both of them.
So
Kristin?
I want to ask, I was just going to say, so Kristin and I are both moms. We both still have kids in the school systems. And so I want to talk about the issue with schools, what's happening with schools. We've both dealt with some very serious things with our children. But Kristin's got 2 kids in school. I have 1. And we have, as moms, we've had some conversations about this, and we've both have had to take some drastic measures for our kids. And this is what we're telling you guys. Like Steve said, pull your kids out of public schools. Do whatever you got to do, but stop supporting this. And I know that's tough for some parents. Please don't think that I'm not, in touch with, the average working parents. And some of you might be single parents and all of that. But there are options today. There are many options. And, they're calling this the Great Reset. Some of you have heard me say with some of these lives, you bet this is the Great Reset. This is a very short window of time that we have to hit the reset button and take it back. So Kristin, why don't you share what you've done with your kids and how you're dealing with this and what we can do really in the fall for our children?
Pardon me, I have a daughter who's a junior this year in Hudsonville High School. She's been virtual this year. She can't wear a mask, so I didn't have to really worry about a lot of things with her. Also, my oldest daughter's been homeschooled for many years, so I let her make her own decisions and I step in when necessary. But my youngest daughter entered kindergarten this year, and I absolutely was not going to mask my child for one moment. So I found a wonderful private school where my daughter's absolutely safe and thriving. What I would tell people to do is make sure you take a stand. Like, If you can remove your children from the public school system, please do so. And if you're a working parent, there are homeschooling groups around West Michigan. I know that on my side of the state, where if you have to go to work, there's childcare included, and there's centers where people do it in their home or they rent out buildings. There are so many resources available for your children. One thing that is constantly debated is the school board issue. A lot of people say, well, you can shout at your school boards all you want. You can be respectful. However you handle it, they're going to do what they have to do to get the funding. And that's why I think you all make a great point that we need to rail in that funding, but also get them to understand that if they do not comply, you will remove your child. And on head count day, as far as I understand it, that's part of determining the type of funding that they receive per child. But these school boards, they say that they don't have the power. They do. Every school board member is supposed to take an oath, and if they are allowing this masking issue to continue, if they are allowing the psychological abuse of children, they are violating their oath. One thing I want to just throw in here when we're talking about schools, everyone is worried about what's going on in the fall. One thing that is so frustrating is that when we are controlling an infectious disease, we have something called the hierarchy of controls. At the very top of that is engineering controls. I cannot believe just now, after screaming this with people in my profession since last March, all we should have done is modified our HVAC systems, bypassed energy restrictions, and let the actual scientists, let the actual subject matter experts go in there and do health risk assessments and determine how many air exchanges per hour they needed. Because when a virus is aerosolized, it is lifted up above the breathing zone. And if your air is stagnant, it can stay there for days. So it doesn't matter if you had a positive case. If little Joey came over 2 days later and sat there, mask or not, they are still going to inhale these aerosols into their deep lung. And if you pay attention to the media now, they're putting out reports saying, these school systems implemented engineering controls. They put filters in the HVAC systems, either use dilution or destruction technologies, and the cases are plummeting by greater than 45%. But in these articles, they will say, but we still recommend masking. When you are trying to verify the confidence of control, you assess that specific control. When you don't give it time to determine how much credit should be due to modifying those engineering controls, it's because they do not want us to know that's all we needed to do. And there are engineers and there are people like Tammy and I who would totally go out and help schools do this. So we need the government to look into this. We need to look into the engineering controls. And it's not just for COVID-19. This is something we could do for flu season. There's devices you can buy for your home for $400 that will kill 99% of mold, bacteria, and viruses. This is something that we need to look at and stop jumping. Just like in our professional world, we don't jump the chain of command, so to speak. We have a route that we follow to get our point across. And what these people have done is they bypassed all the science, all the existing standards, and jumped down to the most irresponsible and dangerous controls. And the harm that this is doing to children. Tammy and I have traveled around the country together, helping to open up schools and states. The stories that we hear from parents, it's hard to say and not cry. You have children killing themselves at 9 years old. You have children saying, I want to die, Mom, who is in first grade. Why is a first grader talking about wanting to die? Because these children, my niece came home from school one day, and my sister-in-law is a teacher. Her daughter was still wearing a mask at dinner. And she said, why are you wearing that? And she said, Mom, I'm so scared I'm going to forget my mask, because she forgot it one day and was shamed. This is not okay. If we are sitting in school systems and we're worried about critical race theory, we're worried about all these other issues. We have bullying campaigns, and all we're doing is bullying, shaming, targeting, and demonizing these poor children who are forced to believe. And I'm just going to end my rant, my TED Talk with this, is that we have a huge issue with human trafficking and sex trafficking in our state and in this country. And what we are doing is we are grooming our youth to know, even though Mom and Dad says this isn't okay, but you just got to do it, shut up and color, we are grooming our children to comply and allow themselves to be in very dangerous situations where they are not going to report heinous acts upon themselves and their bodies because they are afraid they are going to get in trouble because these members of authority are misguiding them and telling them to do things that they know are wrong. See, this is a bigger picture here, and I'm a root cause person, and I don't tomorrow Every child, every employee needs to get out of these masks because they are not personal protective equipment and they are not source control. There are muzzles to your health, there are muzzles to your freedom, and we are ruining the mental health in the state, and we must turn this around.
Amen. Well, as an occupational environmental health and safety professional in Kristin's career field, I second that very strongly. And there are a lot of those in our career fields who are standing up and speaking the same thing. This is why it's been so important for us to be speaking and testifying as we have. And those that we have testified in front of, when we present the science and the data, heck, Kristin and I have testified against the CDC. We've blown and exposed all of their science. It is not science. It's garbage. It's junk. It's pseudoscience. It's political science. We've exposed that in court cases. So if we would just get it together and get aggressive, and I love the fact that you said, Steve, you're going on the offense, because that's exactly what needs to happen. If we're going to stop this and take this back, we cannot relent. We have got to pursue this with reckless abandon because so much damage has been done to our state economically, the mental health crisis, the suicides among our children. It is so unacceptable, and we have to take very serious personal responsibility in our positions. You guys are in positions for a reason, for such a time as this. Kristin and I are in positions with our experience, our education, our knowledge for such a time as this. Ron is in position to be leading this charge for such a time as this. So we have to get together and realize the importance and the high level. We have to have a very high level of respect for the positions that God has placed us in for such a time as this, to stop this, to stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves, to fight and to turn the tide, to reclaim our liberties and to retain them moving forward. That's what this is all about. That's what we're doing here. So I know you guys, I know it's Monday morning, I know it's early, and I know we have a busy, crazy week. And I know there were a few other topics, and Ron and I have felt very strongly that the biggest thing that we want to convey and we want to encourage you on is please do not let up. Please do not think this governor is finally working with you. Well, she's willing to work with us now. No, she's not. She would have her boot on our necks if she could still. She's being forced to work with you. And that's what you have to remember. Do not let up. And keep that, in your vision moving forward as it feels like, okay, finally we're seeing her reign of terror come to an end. Yes, because we're taking it back, not because she's willing to work with us. Right. So that's just what I would encourage you guys. And I know that Ron has a couple of other things that we've talked about that we want to.
Well, mainly I want to finish it out these last 10 minutes or so with both of Steve and Luke. I know you're hearing from us, but I want you to know we're repeating what it is we're hearing from the people. And there are, believe it or not, the two main things, of course, are election integrity. If we do not fix that, we don't fix anything. It will be perpetual dominance by the left. Secondly, this whole issue of these mandates in Michigan, we have got to do more than just take care of these things by budgetary issues. We've got to expose the past, the destruction of our economy, the destruction of small business, the purposeful destruction of individual lives that is literally on the heads of all these Democrats. Every one of them voted in unison for anything the governor did in maintaining her power and control over we the people. And I am afraid that we are going to back off the gas a little bit when it comes to leadership, feel a little good through the summer. The people are angry and frustrated. And the two main things now are, again, our election integrity. And the second one is the vaccine passport, meaning for everything from work, vaccines for going back to school. And these things have got to be done. But where it starts, honestly, is, yes, it's in your oversight committee, and I want to hear from both of you, but it also is from you guys speaking with one voice from the Republicans in the legislature on both sides in the fact that we should not be following these mandates. They are illegal. She demonstrated to us specifically that masks are for show because she isn't wearing them and she's getting together, breaking her own rules. Why are we waiting until after Memorial Day weekend to allow these restaurants to open up? My question to you guys is, why do we not have a press conference and say, with the governor's, what she's just done, it isn't going to change whether it's next Tuesday or this coming Friday, but it's vital to small business to be able to exercise their freedom of rights to operate their business and for us to enjoy and celebrate a weekend. It has nothing to do with the virus any longer, and we're aware of it. And this June 1st and July 1st capacity limits and changes are arbitrary and have nothing to do with the virus at all. And it is time for us to stand up and say enough and never again. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are there and what it is you guys think you can do about that.
Sure, I can jump in there real quick. I'm pretty excited about the Ottawa Declaration that we had here, started months and months ago. If you go look it up, Ottawa Declaration, it's a pretty strong statement, I think, from the very beginning. And it started at a local level, at local grassroots level. And we were just really happy to be part of it. And I think it's a strong message from Ottawa County. So at the end of the day, we do need the people behind us there too, working very hard. And I'll let Steve jump in, but Ron, I also wanted to talk about local elections when you want to turn back to that.
Yeah, I just say civil disobedience. That is the key right now. You just say, look, we're done with this. The governor, you're clearly done with your own rules. You're not following them. Your staff isn't following them. So why the heck do we have to follow them? I haven't been. Encourage other people to say, look, go back to normal. Don't buy into this idea that there's a new normal that you have to follow. No, that's garbage. We're done. It's over. You look at the other states that are saying they're done with it, and guess what? Their case numbers are lower than ours. People are just happier when you move on, and it's good for the mental health. It's good for society moving forward. So look, Governor, if you're not going to follow your rules, then why in the heck should we follow them? I would encourage everyone, time to move on. Stop worrying about these stupid rules that they put forward.
Well said. I think you're muted, Ron. So we're going to invite you to our big, we're going to have a big mask burning party here pretty soon. And we're going to invite you. Maybe we'll do a press conference and tell everyone, just stop complying, right? Burn the masks, take them off. We're done.
Luke,
do want
let's
to
talk about local elections before we go.
Absolutely. I just wanted to hit back on that. We talked about the school board elections. I think they are tremendously influential on what goes on. And if you look around the state of Michigan, there was huge differences between what was going on between counties, between school districts, and even at the local township levels. I just talked about Ottawa Declaration. That was a local township driving all of that, and myself. So I think those elections can make a huge difference in what happens at the next pandemic. And it can be a real source of resistance too. Resistance for we the people, for liberty and freedom, saying, this stops here. It doesn't go on here in this township, in this county, at this health department. So consider running. Some of these seats, they almost have to beg somebody to run in. My local township here, there was some open seats that you had to write people in for. Run for these seats. You'd be surprised sometimes how easy it is to get in.
We change our neighborhoods again, our communities, one election at a time, and we can change the school systems much quicker than we can change everything else because they literally run unopposed or there aren't that many. And if you got a block of people together and we help to educate you or provide you resources to train you to be an effective leader or to run for office, if you're a parent or you're in a district and you care about the future of our country and the next generation, we would encourage you to run. And we've got resources, again, that we have available to you through Leadership Institute that can help you with the process. But if you were to run a campaign together with 3 of you or 2 of you on a single ballot and you did signs, I can promise you, you'll get elected because these people are not organized. And a lot of these people that are on school boards have no idea what it is that they're voting on, don't pay attention to curriculum. They're actually just, it's because nobody has stood up and served. And we've also got to identify those that don't stand for what we do and get rid of them. So, Steve, what else do you have to say in closing?
Yeah, no, thanks for doing this. I'd love to join your mask burning party, but I don't even have a mask to burn, so I'm not sure what I would do there. We're going to stay on offense, and it's good for groups like you guys and people to keep putting pressure on us. The second you stop putting pressure on the legislature, it becomes easy for us to take our jobs for granted. So I want to encourage you guys to keep up the pressure. That's good. That's how the system works. Everyone responds to political pressure one way or another. So let's keep doing it. We'll keep applying the pressure to the governor and hopefully be done with this ridiculousness we put up with far too long.
Perfect way. Kristin, anything to say in closing?
Yes, just two quick things. I meant to mention this before when I said that we need to unmask employees tomorrow. I am very concerned about all these places that don't have air conditioning and the heat stress that this is going to cause. And just know that if you have any injury or illness above first aid, lose consciousness, that's an OSHA recordable. Use these standards against them. And if your employer is the one still pushing these, I'm not trying to kill any more small businesses, but if they're not standing up for you, then you have the right to protect them. But secondly, speaking of why are we not opening up and why are we waiting till June 1st? Why are we killing the holiday, right? Well, my birthday is June 14th, which is Flag Day. I share a birthday with Trump. I need to find a restaurant who's willing to go above their numbers and allow me to celebrate my birthday there and just invite anybody who wants to come out. And I say, we just have a little birthday protest on June 14th, Flag Day. So I'm willing to do that if anyone wants to join me.
Fantastic.
Well, you better be careful. You'll have thousands of people show up. You know you will.
Tammy, anything from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to both of you. I know it's been a really rough year. I recognize because I talked to you and we're following things closely. And Ron and I have a lot of inside information that a lot of the people watching just are not privy to. So I know that you have been trying. I know you've been handcuffed through much of 2020. We have been watching since the cuffs have come off. You get very aggressive and stand up and go after this woman and her administration. We've watched you become bulldogs because you now have the support of leadership. And I just want to thank you for that. I understand there's been a lot going on behind the scenes that you have had no control over. Elections have consequences. We have had people elected into office from the governor to the Secretary of State, the Attorney General, and even the leadership within the legislature that has really prevented you guys from being able to do more. We understand that. We also are going to keep the pressure on you because we know that when you are able to do something, you need to. So we just want to say thank you. We appreciate you taking the time on a busy morning, the start of a busy week. Thank you for both for doing what you're doing. It has been through your leadership and your willingness to stand up and the people's pressure that we have finally, I feel like, turned a corner. So thank you both so much. Thank you, Kristin, for being my partner in crime. We'll continue to do our thing. And thank you, Ron, for leading as well.
Well, and all I would say as we close out is that your voice really does matter. These 5,000 public comments is what forced MIOSHA, but also the conservative leaders that we do have on both sides of the House and the Senate are in a much stronger position, not because of just numbers, but because of your voice, because our voice gives them the credibility and the strength to have a stronger caucus on both sides. Understand that when you speak up, when you show up, it absolutely makes the others move. And that's what's happening. We still have a lot of what we want to call rhinos. I hate the term because honestly, it doesn't matter. It just matters what they stand for and whether or not they are involved with taking, support from big organizations. And that happens. Lobbyists are a part of Lansing. They're a part of Washington. And it is a fact. It's a reality. We have to battle that because the people's voices need to be heard, and we have to take back our government and the control of our society. But understand it's not their job, and it's not our job as leaders of this organization to do the work. It is our obligation and our duty to encourage you to stand up. It only is going to happen when you join us on the field, not just in the stands or at home on your televisions or on your computers. You have to actually show up and speak up, and you have to stand up because we are the majority. We are just, again, they are the vocal minority and we are the large silent majority, but we have got to not be silent any longer. I know you're waking up. I know you care about election integrity. We are working on that, but elections, again, have consequences. We elected the governor. We changed our rules. We took the redistricting away, and we were asleep when that happened. Now it's time for us to fix those problems. We will do that, and I know you'll be ready. And the mask burning party is going to happen. And we want you to show up when it does, and never to ever, ever put them on again, because this is not helping this virus or any other pandemic in the future. So we just thank you all for joining, and we're going to have more of these election roundtables again in the future very soon. And we thank you both for joining us, and have a great day, everybody. And just know, America's best is yet to come. Thanks, everybody.